Hi, and welcome to our next episode of Avanade series, Imagine What You Will Do with AI. It's a huge privilege today and a pleasure to have Malcolm Hawker, the CDO of Profisee. Thank you so much for joining us, Malcolm. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and about Profisee?
Well, thank you for having me. It's my honor to be here today in this wonderful, amazing city, in this wonderful, amazing studio. I'm Malcolm, CDO of Profisee. I've been in this role for about 2 years now, prior to being Profisee's Chief Data Officer, the inaugural Chief Data Officer. I was an analyst at Gartner for about 3 years, where I was given the honor of speaking to no fewer than 1,500 CIOs and CDOs and CTOs about their biggest challenges related to data and analytics. I've been in this space, roughly, I can't even believe I'm about to say this, 30 years.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
I've been a consultant, I've been a vendor, I have been an analyst, I have run an IT function for a $2 billion publicly traded company. I've been in leadership roles, I've had to make tough decisions about where to invest in data, where to not invest in data, and happy to be here and share what I know today. I have the honor of working for Profisee Software. We are a US-based company that makes master data management software, MDM.
I think we should have a kind of MDM swear box for how many times we say MDM in this episode.
Okay, yeah, let's
count how many times we say it.
Let's do it. And just remember, folks, it's not mobile device management, it's master data management. Master data is the data that matters the most to your organization, data related to your customers and your suppliers and your vendors and your products, and a way to allow companies to have a single, consistent, trusted, accurate view of that data that is widely shared in an organization.
No, fantastic. Let's carry on with the topic of, I guess, being a CDO, obviously talking on a CXO level a lot currently. What's top of the CDO's mind right now? What's keeping them awake at night, particularly when they look towards their business ambitions and how to supercharge these with technologies like AI? What are their challenges? And obviously Profisee really provides that North Star for data management and master data management. How is Profisee tackling some of these challenges?
All right, so let's talk first about kind of what's keeping CDOs up at night and what isn't keeping CDOs up at night. I think is a good place to start, but there's a lot of competing pressures for CDOs. So we have data that says that most CDOs are actually kind of like me, first-time CDOs for their company. So there's a lot of expectation there. The broader expectation is, how do we leverage data as a competitive differentiator, right? So that's a pretty big ask. About 25% of CDOs have some notion of a transformational mandate, right? We need to go from the old way of working to the new way of working, and data is going to help facilitate that. So that's top of mind for a lot of CDOs. How do we break from the old and get to the new? That also includes often an AI mandate. Boards of directors out there and C-suites want to see some progress towards AI. We all know that it has transformational impacts, and we all know that it's going to change the way we do business. It's even going to change society, and how do we leverage the data that we have in order to fulfill that? So that's keeping a lot of CDOs up at night. At the same time, though, a lot of CDOs are challenged with some legacy technology, legacy approaches, legacy frameworks. They've got maybe even a lot of data debt, right? Maybe they've got some questions about their data. Maybe their users don't trust their data. So how do we, double down on foundations, but find a way to leverage that data for AI, for advanced analytics, for all sorts of things that we want to do to transform as a company, and how do we do both? So how do we grow and innovate, but also how do we improve what we've already got? How do we focus on those foundations? So those are some of the things that CDOs have to do. It's a balancing act. It's shift left, it's shift right, it's focus on foundations, it's innovate, it's transform, and do it in a way that is sustainable as well. These are things that CDOs are thinking about. How do we act and be more sustainable with how we to manage our data estate? So there's a lot. There's a lot for the average CDO.
I can imagine.
So where Profisee fits into that puzzle is, MDM, master data management. This is the data that matters the most to an organization. It's the data that is shared widely. Organizations, by their nature, are kind of siloed, right? There's the marketing silo, there's finance silo, the HR silo, the procurement silo, and there's data that moves across all of them that may be structured or defined a different way or managed a different way. The way marketing approaches managing customers is a little different than how finance does it. MDM is the bridge between all of those worlds. MDM is the common language that allows companies to share that data in a way that is meaningful and valuable. So MDM is the connective tissue that allows really complex business processes like procure to pay or quote to cash, allows them all to work together at a data layer.
So let's talk a little bit about spend. So I was reading a McKinsey survey actually recently where they said that in most industries, organizations are currently likely to invest about 5% of their digital budgets in generative AI and analytical AI, for instance. What kind of budgets do your clients reserve for data and specifically MDA, and what kind of percentage of their budget?
So writ large, we know that 15 to 20% of a broader IT budget will be generally allocated towards data and analytics. In terms of what is being spent towards MDM, my guess would be around 2 to 4%, which would be appropriate. There's a lot of places to be spending money in a data and analytics infrastructure. There's the core enabling infrastructure. There's data quality tools. There's MDM tools. There's data integration tools. There's a lot of software there. So it doesn't sound like a very big spend. I would argue, there's a case to be made for more money to be going for data and analytics and more money to be going towards MDM and key enabling foundations like MDM or data quality. But at the same time, if I'm a C-level executive and I ask my CDO to say, okay, well, how does better customer data drive revenue or reduce my costs or reduce my business risk? And if that CDO can't actually say and can't actually answer, using a euro, a pound, or a dollar in the answer to say, well, actually better customer data yielded $2 million in results last year. If you can't do that, well, then you're in a very defensive posture as a CDO, right? What you're doing is you're trying to do your best to not lose the 15 to 20% you've been allocated. We really need to shift that. We need to go from, CDO as in the defensive posture to more of an offensive posture where you're able to say, yes, I delivered $2 million in bottom line, net revenue to the company last year. And I would like, 20% of that to invest in innovation, to invest in AI, to invest in agents, to do the cool stuff. That's what we need more CDOs to be doing. But unfortunately, so many of us are challenged to do that because we're not measuring the business value of our investments in data and analytics.
A lot of topics right now, certainly when I'm talking to clients, are often around risk and the substantial risks associated with the kind of transformative technology that we have access to now, including data management risks. How does Profisee and your work with Profisee for clients help counter some of this and actually mitigate these risks?
Yeah, getting your hands around master data is an important piece of the puzzle when it comes to risk management. Because really, you need to know what you've got, and you need to be able to apply some basic rules to things like who can see this and who can update this, who can update a customer record, who can update a supplier record. So there are some very basics here that are enabled by having a single, trusted, consistent, accurate source of information related to customers or product or suppliers. So to me, that's a baseline. Knowing what you've got, that would be a function of having an enterprise class data catalog in Microsoft Purview, for example, where let's inventory what we've got, let's profile what we've got, right? So that's step number one, data catalog, get it into a catalog. Step number two is let's apply some rules to it. Let's apply some governance policy. The rules are governance policies about who can do what, who can see what, who can update something. That is the domain of MDM. There will be other rules that are coming from a CISO organization, related to your policies and procedures around information management and privacy management. And sometimes other things like privacy may be managed in another system. But the core of all of that is being able to know, what have I got, right? How important is it? How widely is it shared? And what are the basic rules that are being applied to it? So MDM is a foundational component of any sort of big, enterprise-wide risk management strategy, for sure.
Yeah, fantastic. I remember in January, Profisee and Microsoft released a Harvard Business Review pulse survey.
We did.
Which I was very, very excited about. I love HBR. And I remember one of the statistics was that 55% of organizations believe their current data foundation is reliable for AI adoption. So that was in January. Do you think this has changed at all over the last few months? How are we in that kind of data maturity phase? And how, I guess how ready are our organizational foundations to actually accommodate this kind of transformative technology and actually help fuel a competitive advantage with it?
I would be surprised if that number's got actually a little bit worse.
Oh.
Sadly,
Oh gosh, a regression.
as we've learned
Yes.
how these technologies
Oh, wow.
work, and as we've
Yeah.
learned what they really need to be optimized. So the flip side of 55% of ready is 45% are not ready.
Yeah.
And I would wager that it's probably about the same or maybe even a little bit worse, because what we know now, it took sadly the better part of 2 years for a lot of data and analytics leaders to understand, okay, what are these Gen AI things and how do they actually run?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we saw such a huge POC purgatory last year.
Yes, well, right. I mean, for the better part of 2 years, even to this day, I still hear CDOs saying things like, oh man, I'm really concerned about using my data to train an LLM. Well, you're not gonna train an LLM unless you're Google or Facebook or some of these other like mega brands that just happen to have 15,000 GPUs kicking around extra that they can use to run for the next 3 months to build one of these foundational models for the cost of tens of millions of dollars. Unless you're one of these companies, you're probably not gonna be training an LLM. But there were a lot of people in the first year of the kind of the Gen AI explosion who were like, oh man, my data quality is really suspect and I'm really concerned about our ability to build models. Well, you're probably not going to be building those models, but there are other things that you are going to be doing using some of that traditional data, like applying complex RAG patterns on top of any sort of smart agent-based process. So you can ground the agent. You can tell the agent, hey agent, here's a vector database that includes all of my customers. Now tell me something about my customers. If that list of customers is not accurate and consistent and trustworthy, well, the agent is going to give you some probably faulty data. So yes, Gen AI-based solutions are built on and optimized by unstructured data, right? Which is largely outside the scope of most governance programs today. Largely, not entirely, but largely. So getting our hands around that, I think, is going to be absolutely critical. We as CDOs need to start bringing that unstructured data into the fold. We need to start profiling it and cataloging it, tagging that data. There's a lot of things that we need to do in order to get that unstructured data under our umbrella so that we can start understanding what's there and what's not there. Well, at the same time, using structured data to do things like ground the behavior of an LLM through these complex RAG patterns, retrieval augmented generation patterns, using tools like OpenAI Studio from Microsoft to build agents, to start experimenting with some of this stuff on maybe some internal use cases, like using an agent to interpret your HR handbook, for example. There's no list of things, no end to the things that you can be doing to start experimenting with some of these technologies now and using traditional data management, using tools like MDM and data quality tools to actually help enable that.
So to contextualize Profisee's awesomeness, and I'm just trying to think of a better noun, but I like awesomeness or prowess in the MDM or data space. Can you tell me a little bit more about I guess one of your customer examples that you're most proud of? I know Nestle Purina was quite a lighthouse project.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more?
Yeah, so Nestle Purina is a great use case. So the VP of data science, a gentleman named Brian Zink, kind of brought Profisee in to help build the bridge between the world of the data science world and the traditional data management world. So Nestle Purina actually engaged my old employer, Gartner, to help them kind of build out a new next-gen organizational structure. They call it the Hive, where they have data and analytics functions that are deeply embedded into the business functions. So they don't actually draw a distinction between like a data team and a business team. They're deeply interwoven. That's one thing that I love. And what Nestle figured out was like, hey, we want to do some cool stuff. We want to leverage the power of data and analytics. We want to leverage data science. They had this data science team, but it was kind of over there doing its own thing. They wanted to bring that into the fold, bring this all together under this one unified organizational structure. So they started with some fairly basic use cases. Like they were starting with, believe it or not, a pet 360.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
I want one of those.
Yeah. So Nestle Purina sells pet food to a lot of veterinary organizations, to a lot of veterinary offices. So if you go and get the special food that is good for your pet's stomach, it's probably from Purina, and they know who your pet is, and they wanted to build a single source of truth for information related to pets.
So we have hyper-personalization for pets as well now.
Well, oh yeah,
That's
you'd be
fantastic.
oh my gosh, you'd be amazed at some of the stuff that's happening. Like they're putting like IoT sensors in like litter boxes. And,
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, like tracking when the cats go go into the box and out of the box. You can actually start to build
connected
models that
pet.
would
Wow.
predict like things like urinary health. Like, oh, it's just fantastic.
That's very exciting.
But getting your hands around, okay, well, who are their pets, right? Like who owns this cat or this dog? That was step number one. And they went on to a Vet 360 and to have a single view, trusted view of information related to veterinarians across the United States and across the globe. So they're using Profisee to do that. So there's some very kind of foundational steps that you would have to take, which is, okay, here's the information that we know about veterinarians around the globe, and now what can we do with that? How do we apply that to data science use cases so we don't have to, every time we want to build some new model, start from scratch and start from zero, right? Where you'd have data scientists that are writing custom Python code to start doing things like matching across data sets. Can we do that in a more scalable, flexible, extensible way using a tool like Profisee? So very foundational stuff, getting a trusted source of information related to the things that matter the most, and then leveraging them from other use cases, whether that's a basic analytics use case or data science use cases. Stuff that Purina is doing, it's a lot of fun.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Going to partnerships. So I have a background partially in partnerships from my time at Microsoft. And given the speed of the technology market and specifically technological progression, so that it's kind of exceeded Moore's law. We do, in my opinion, really need an ecosystem economy to actually scale. And I don't think in competitive advantage anymore. I think in cooperative advantage. And I'm just interested from your point of view, how does a company and ISV or independent software vendor like Profisee actually partner up with a global systems integrator and consulting house like Avanade on these transformational projects?
Oh my gosh. So I love that concept, right? I love that theory, right? Of like, how do we collaborate more? How do we share more? How do we work together on some of these biggest problems, right? So Profisee partners closely with Avanade to help our customers realize the benefit of MDM. And broader to that, right? Just implementing a data strategy, understanding the things I need to do to be that transformative force within my organization. That's something that Avanade is really, really good at. And so we're thrilled to be partners with Avanade in this space.
So are we.
Yeah, and how do you take these partnerships and just kind of extend them and leverage them for scale? You've got a global footprint, we've got a global footprint, we're good at MDM, you guys are really good in the C-suite, you're really good with helping drive data strategies and define data strategies. Having those C-suite conversations where, no, probably not talking about MDM, but again, it's a foundational component, right? So how do these pieces all fit together? That's the stuff that we're working on, and it's really kind of exciting. It's really exciting because it's not just about Profisee and Avanade, it's about all the customers we get to touch along the way as well. And how do maybe some of those customers start to collaborate as well? That's where a tool like MDM, I think, can go really next gen, right? Because if you think about what MDM does, MDM breaks silos within one company, right? Silo within one company. But there's an interesting thought experiment here where maybe individual companies are the silos themselves, right? And how do we break silos that exist across companies? I'll give you an example. Every large company, probably in the UK, has a record. If they're B2B at all, they probably got a record in the database for British Telecom, right? And that record looks the same here as it does here, as it does here, as it does here, as it does here. And it's largely managed the same way. And chances are pretty good you can just go on Google and find information about British Telecom. So is that data, that record for British Telecom, is it really driving competitive differentiation for you? No, probably not. If you can Google it, I would argue it's not a differentiator, right? But I'm paying for stewards to manage it, I'm paying for storage and compute, and it's being done thousands of times over. So instead of having everyone have a record for British Telecom, maybe we can have one that is shared across everybody. Let's take a use case like sustainability, right? We know that 50 to 90% of data sitting in data centers is just dark. It's just fallow, it's not sitting there. So how do we be smarter about how we manage data? And can we share data that is not really that different? It's not managed that different. I don't manage that British Telecom record much different than you do, but are there ways that we can leverage some of these technologies, like a Microsoft Azure, like a Profisee, to start sharing some things that really don't drive a ton of competitive value, but matter a lot to an organization? There's really interesting use cases here when you start to view individual companies as silos. This is something I would be just beyond thrilled to partner with an Avanade to start figuring out.
Yeah, me too. I always like this kind of notion of a circle of life with AI and data. So obviously the devil is in the data, and you need the best data for accurate, reliable, and responsible AI. But simultaneously, particularly with Gen AI, which I would say has a kind of affinity for unstructured data, it can actually help you get your data house in order at the same time by, let's say, augmenting the data quality. So, I don't know, removing duplicate records, standardizing data formats, or helping with anonymizing data or managing policy compliance. How does this automation that GenAI provides, well, the automation in general that can be provided by AI, actually help MDM programs? Because I think it's highly exciting. It is a kind of a circle of life. It's not like you have to get your data in order and then you can start with the AI. You can actually simultaneously create quite a lot of mutual synergies at the same time.
Yeah, there's some really exciting stuff here. I think I'm a bit of a data geek. So,
yeah, I get very excited about this as well.
Data excites me. Instead of a circle of life, I like to kind of think of it as a virtuous improvement cycle.
Yes,
And let's take the concept of data observability. Are you familiar with this, or have you heard of this? So data observability.
I think just for our audience, let's clarify what it is.
So data observability says that we can look at patterns that exist within the data to predict when a data pipeline would fail. It's the same is true if you build and manage elevators and you have a lot of IoT and sensor data and you gather that data, you can find the patterns that would suggest when there's going to be an outage that happens, right? So this is not new. We're already doing this today in a lot of manufacturing floors where we're predicting where there will be an outage, right? In the data world, a very small microcosm of that is this idea of data observability. Well, writ large, if we have the ability to look at transactional data, metadata, classic master data, if we start to look at all those things and apply some analytical AI to that, some causal AI to that, if we apply some machine learning to that, I would argue that we can start to determine where there are patterns, where data is fit for purpose and where it is not fit for purpose. We can look at business processes like a quote to cash, and we can look and see, well, this one happened quickly and this one happened slowly. What are things that differentiated this quote to cash process that made this happen in an hour instead of 3 weeks? Well, here are some commonalities in the data. Here are some commonalities in the data quality. We can start to know when data is fit for purpose, when it's not, when it's high quality, when it's lower quality. We can know the best way to structure data, to model data, to define data, the best way to govern and manage data. The AI will help tell us that. So from an MDM perspective, these things are near and dear to my heart. How do we manage and model data? What are the hierarchies here? AI will tell us the hierarchies that matter, the relationships that matter the most, household relationships, on and on. So when the AI starts to help augment how we manage our data and how the governance policies we apply to it, when AI can start to tell us when the data is fit for purpose for this context or fit for purpose for that context, we can drastically improve our business processes. And the more we improve our business processes, the more the data, the better the data is going to be, and on and on and on. That's the virtuous cycle.
Yeah, fantastic. It's been such a pleasure, Malcolm, to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're looking forward to partnering up even more with Profisee in the future, together with you and your teams. So watch this space. Take care and see you next time.